technology problem. Let's see what we're going to do about that. Oh, there, it's like magic. Our members enjoy many benefits of club membership, as you can see on the slide. Take a minute to read that and see what I mean, and see how important our club is to the community. These are just some of the benefits of being a member of Lifelong Learning. I'd like to introduce, there you are, our program chair, Juanita Brown, who will introduce our speaker today. Juanita.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Lifelong Learning. So nice to see your smiling faces. We're mostly back from summer, aren't we? Today, I always loved hummingbirds, sort of, but I wasn't really focused on them or paying any attention. And then when Dr. Pridgen was going to do this presentation, I started thinking about it, and a friend bought me a hummingbird feeder. Oh my God, my whole world changed. I sit there and I'm... Now I have to pay attention to my backyard and watch them fight and watch them feed. It's fabulous. I just love it. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, you didn't miss much. I'm so happy to welcome Dr. Alex Pridgen today. You know, he presented to us before. He knows a lot about the world of animals. Remember the shark presentation he gave us before? This time he's going to tell us about those wonderful hummingbirds, but he has the background to tell us about these things. He's a PhD in biology. He's the author of 50-plus scientific articles. He's written 8 books that got published. And other award-winning articles on petroglyphs and desert tortoises and many other publications. So we have a very learned man among us today, and I'm so grateful to introduce Dr. Alex Pridgen.
Thank you very much, Juanita. It's a pleasure to be here again. I've given a number of talks to Lifelong Learning over the years, a lot during COVID. I've talked about sharks, bears, the greatest trial of the century, that sort of thing. But anyway, today I'm going to talk about the most amazing birds on Earth. And if I asked 10 people to name the most amazing bird on Earth, I'd get 100 different answers. Different criteria, of course. Some birds, like the crow, are highly intelligent, ravens also, because they can bend a twig into hooks and use that to fish out insects. The bald eagle has a visual acuity 5 times that of humans. And of course, its flight abilities are renowned. The American flamingo, there are something like 6 species of flamingos, 4 in the Western Hemisphere, and they're crazy because, not just for filter feeding, but because of their courtship behavior. They go into line dancing, and you have like 100 birds all going like this at the same time. It's really funny to watch. You go on video, and go on YouTube and see some of these things. Or the resplendent quetzal from Costa Rica. It's got tail feathers 3 feet long. It's a beautiful bird, beautiful bird. But I think I'm a bit biased because my wife and I have raised parrots for 40 years. And parrots are intelligent, not just because they can repeat words, but because, well, you'll see. Next. Mike? This one we named Woodstock. A little golfing cockatoo. We bought it to replace a cockatiel that my wife was very fond of. We had no idea this was probably the smartest bird on the planet. I'm not kidding. This species is as intelligent as a 3-year-old. We had her in a cage, and next, she kept getting out because she would slide this little thing to the left, lift it up, and she'd open the door. And so we finally had to put a lock on the right-hand side so she couldn't do that. All right. So I was sitting in my study one day and heard this crash. Next. The floor of the cage, she'd knocked the door of the cage off its hinges onto the floor. She lifted it up on the spring mechanism, lifted it up, and it fell on the floor. The lock is still in place. Okay? Now, so I thought, okay, fine. I'm going to use a C-clamp to attach that door to the frame of the cage. And she watched me tighten the screw here, right? Next, look what she's doing. She's trying to unscrew it. She watched me do it. Okay, so that finally actually worked. It worked because she didn't have the strength to turn it all the way. Okay, now next. So now her focus is on the feeder doors. Now there's a little disc here, which you can see where the arrow is. You move that to the right or to the left, and the door will open. She figured that out pretty quickly. So I put some duct tape on that. Okay, next. She figured out how to remove the duct tape. She can't see it, but she knows it's there. And so she's gradually lifting it up, Mike. She's almost got it off. And so I had to put more duct tape on there. So she's incredible. We now have, next, a locking mechanism she can't possibly get out of. Okay, that's our little Goffin cockatoo. So I'm a bit biased when it comes to the most amazing birds on earth. And we moved here 8 years ago. And this is my first experience with hummingbirds. And I've come to believe, next, what David Attenborough said about them. Hummingbirds are among the most spectacular creatures on earth and the most acrobatic. And I think many of you who have hummingbird feeders have seen behaviors that you just find amazing. Okay, next. So today we're going to talk about relationships. What are they related to? Where are they? And how diverse are they? How and when and where do they migrate? Talk about feeding and feeders, different types of feeders for your garden. Territoriality, how they can defend their territory. Fountains, they need water for bathing and for preening. Iridescence, they use iridescent feathers in mating to attract mates. And live mating and lifespan, how they raise their young in the nest. Sleep, how they can go to sleep and not die. And different predators and collisions from either humans or sliding glass doors or pesticides, whatever. Okay, so we're going to talk about all those topics today. This is the only species I've seen in Anthem, the Costas hummingbird. And so you're going to see mainly photos of it, but also Anna's hummingbird. Okay, next. Now, where are birds in the bird world? Where do they fit in? This is a major DNA study done by Stephen Brussati, who got his bachelor's degree at Chicago, U of Chicago, and his master's and his PhD at Columbia. He is now a reader in vertebrate paleontology at the University of Edinburgh in Scotland. Brilliant man, young. Anyway, he did this study. He was also a consultant for Walking with Dinosaurs, the book and the movie, and also a consultant on the movie Jurassic Park Dominion. Brilliant man. Do we have oh, thank you. Fantastic. Okay. Okay, so what do we have here? At the bottom, down here, here we are. Here we are, right there at the bottom. We have the flightless birds, the ostriches, the kiwis, emus, cassowaries, rheas, flightless because all of their predators went extinct. They didn't need feathers and didn't need wings. Okay, then there's another line that arose from the avian dinosaurs, and those include the chickens and the geese and swans and so forth. And then there's a third line, all the rest. Now, where do I should go back a little bit. This is a book that Stephen wrote. It's not advancing. Here we are. Which I recommend highly it's written for the layman. So anyway, we have the ostrich, the rhea, the cassowary, emu, and kiwi. Down at the bottom, the flightless birds. Hummingbirds share an ancestor with swifts. They're right here. Whoops. Go back. Okay. Come on, here we are. This is not a very good pointer. Anyway, and then farther up, all the other birds. The parrots are way up at the top. So the oldest birds on the planet are the flightless birds, and then the waterfowl and landfowl I mentioned, and then all the rest. Let's see where I point this thing. Here we are. Okay. Now, there are 360 species of hummingbirds, roughly, depending on who you talk to. Most of those, all of those, are in the New World. And you see the numbers sort of vaguely here. There are 24 in North America and Canada, 50 in Mexico, 140 in Ecuador, 100 in Venezuela, 81 in Brazil, and so forth, all the way down the line. There are also 145 species of sunbirds from Africa to China, and honey eaters in Australia. They're not related to hummingbirds at all. In fact, honey eaters are related to crows, so they evolved differently. Why are all the hummingbirds in the New World? Good question. Well, back at the Eocene epoch, 50 million years ago, Europe was like the northern Caribbean is today. Very humid, very wet. And so that's where hummingbirds might have been. In fact, there was a fossil found there in Germany. Here we are. Let me go back. It's not showing up. The fossil found here, found in Germany, dated 28 to 34 million years ago. Why are there hummingbirds in Germany? Here's the answer. Back then, there was a warning. Glaciers were moving southward, and so hummingbirds were getting out of there so they could get some food. And they crossed the Bering Sea on a land bridge, came down through North America, and then into Central America, and in South America. And all the others who stayed behind went extinct. So that's why all these hummingbirds are in the Western Hemisphere. But the story does not end there. 12 million years ago, some decided to come back through the Panama Land Bridge. And then 5 million years ago, some more came through the Caribbean and Florida. How do we know all this? Another DNA study tells us why. If you look at this closely, you'll see all the little black dots are North American species, and all the others are South American species, basically. So where do we find the North American species? Well, there's a group right here. Follow it down to about 12 million years ago. And then another group, these are all 5 million years ago. Okay? The oldest groups are the topazes. There are only 2 species of topazes, and the hermits in South America. Okay. Now, enough science for a while. Let's look at some diversity. We have the smallest of the hummingbirds, is the bee hummingbird, with about 2.1 inches long, which is about the size of your index finger from the knuckle to the end. Okay? The giant hummingbird, up to 9 inches long, and its wings are as long as its body. Its wingspan as long as its body. In fact, they're so long the thing can glide. Okay. We're waiting on this to advance. Here we are. I have to aim up there, I guess. Okay. Come on. Okay. So in Costa Rica, we have one on the left, the black-crested coquette. And he looks like, I called him the Liberace of the hummingbird world. Looks like a pheasant crossed with a hummingbird. The snowcap is aptly named. In Colombia, the blue-bearded helmet crest was thought to be extinct until 1946. It was rediscovered in 2015. The booted racket-tail is one of my favorite little hummingbirds. It's got little feathers around its little tiny feet. Look like little booties. And it's also, the male has these long tail feathers. Not the female, but just the male. The white-necked Jacobin looks like a 2-tone Chevy. And what could possibly pollinate angel's trumpets with those long, long petals? Well, guess what? It's the sword-billed hummingbird. And he can reach way up in there, as you see here, to get at that nectar. Also, datura flowers and so forth. In Venezuela, another coquette, a tufted coquette. Only the male has that funky little crest and the side feathers. The scissor-tailed hummingbird is very endangered, but I doubt that President Maduro really cares. The fiery topaz is one of the oldest birds, hummingbirds. Only 2 species of topazes. In Ecuador, been in Ecuador many times. I want to point out here that the sylphs, there are 2 sylphs here. Just the one. With this long, long tail feathers. Only the male has those long tail feathers because if females had them, they couldn't nest, obviously. The tooth-billed hummingbird is a vicious little thing. It doesn't have teeth, true teeth, but it has these outgrowths of its beak. And it can pull hummingbirds off of another flower if it wants to. The white-tipped sicklebill and its relatives pollinate these banana relatives because they have that curved beak. They can reach down in there. And Bolivia, one of the prettiest tails, belongs to the red-tailed comet. It's one of the largest hummingbirds. Brazil, the hermits and topazes are again very, very old. The coquette's up there, little flirt. In Peru, another coquette. Only the male has that crest. And the wire-crested thorntail, if you can barely see it, it's got a little cowlick, kind of like alfalfa in Little Rascals. Remember that? And it's got a long tail, too. Female doesn't. This is the most amazing hummingbird. This is the marvelous spatule tail. It's got 4 tail feathers, the male does, and it waves those little spatule things around to attract females. Okay. Okay, so most of us, we came here from Florida, and this was the only hummingbird we had out there. So when I came out here, I was surprised that there were so many. The ruby-throated migrates from Canada down to Costa Rica, basically, and back every year. More about him later on. There are 14 species of hummingbirds in California. You'll see some of them here. Allen's is a very common one there, from Santa Barbara up to Oregon. All of these have a range outside California, too. Come on. Okay. Now we have some tourists. We have tourists, don't we? A lot of tourists. Even hummingbirds are tourists. The black-chinned is the most common little hummingbird around here during the breeding season, from March until September. The broad-tailed hummingbird is found on Mount Charleston. The calliope is one of the smallest hummingbirds. In fact, it's the smallest hummingbird native to North America. And I'll talk more about that in a little bit later on. But during the breeding season, it will actually chase red-tailed hawks. It's fearless. The rufous hummingbird has the longest migration of any hummingbird. I'll show you that in a few minutes. Then we have some homesteaders who prefer our low property taxes and that sort of thing. Anyway, Anna's is the first one. They're basically green and gray. The male has this red to reddish pink head, which makes it very distinguishable. It's named after, my French is not that great, Anne de Lisson. And she was the mistress of the robes to Empress Eugenie, who's married to Napoleon III. And it was named by this fellow, René Lesson. And you'll notice that the red feathers on the male is called a gorget. It's really, a lot of hummingbirds have the male hummingbirds. It looks like it should be pronounced forget, but it's not. It's called pronounced gorget. And they'll use this in mating, as we'll see a bit later on. Anyone here from Canada? Maybe? No? It's the city bird for Vancouver. And it's hummingbird. Okay, this is the one we see most often around here. This is like the only one I've ever seen around here. The Costas hummingbird. And it was named after Louis Pestillon Costel Marquis de Bouillard, who was an amateur ornithologist. They're great to watch, Male on the left, female on the right. The male has a little gorget there. You can just see it's kind of like a Fu Manchu mustache. I'll show you a bit better later on. There he is on the right. Very distinctive. Okay. Now, these are maps provided by the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. They're really outdated. On the left, we have the map for Anna's hummingbird, which is, you see stretches from Baja and Sonora, Mexico, up to really just Vancouver. But you'll see there's one little space missing, which is Death Valley. I mean, they're not stupid. They're not going to be in Death Valley. It's right here. Right there. Okay. Now, Costa's hummingbird, they don't show Costa's living here year-round yet, but it's not true because we've had Costas at my bird feeder in the dead of winter, in January and February, every year. So this needs to be updated. Now, how do they know when to leave, when to migrate, when north or south? Well, first of all, shortened days, lack of food, start moving north or south, depending on what they want. Instinct may guide them too. They fly at low altitudes during the day so they can see the flowers below them for feeding. How do they navigate? Well, there are crystals in their brain or in their neck called magnetite, and those can detect Earth's magnetic fields. They follow those up to where they want to go, which is supplemented by observations of land things. Okay, they also could be cryptochromes, which are proteins in the retinas, in the cones and rods and cones of their eyes that can detect magnetic fields. There's still some debate about this. The rufous travels from way down here in Guerrero and Oaxaca all the way up to the Kenai Peninsula in Alaska, 5,000 miles every year. The ruby-throated also migrates quite a bit from southern Canada all the way down to Costa Rica. And every year in September, there is a festival in Rockport, Texas. In September, people gather for talks and workshops and selling things. And it's a huge festival because the hummingbirds need to save up eat enough food to last them across their trek across the Gulf of Mexico. So they eat 3 times their body weight, which is like equivalent to a 150-pound man eating 250 Big Macs. They really stir up that food. So they'll winter from Mexico to Costa Rica, and then in spring they'll come back north, U.S. and Canada. How fast can they fly? Good question. The fastest is the peregrine falcon, 242 miles an hour in a dive. The golden eagle, 200 miles an hour in a dive. Common swift, 70 miles per hour. Anna's, 35 miles per hour, 60 in a dive. And the ruby-throated, 25 miles an hour, which makes it cross the Gulf of Mexico in about 20 hours. That sounds like a long time. 20 hours. As I'm fond of saying, that's faster than Spirit Airlines. They have the highest metabolism of any vertebrate, and they have to eat twice their body weight daily. But they're blessed because they can convert fructose directly into energy. We have to convert fructose to glucose first. They can use them both immediately. They weigh about 1.5 to 4.5 grams. Now, a penny weighs about 2.5 grams. A nickel weighs about 5 grams, to give you some idea of weight. Their heart accounts for 2.5% of that body weight, and the brain, 4.5%. Ours is measly 2% of body weight. Theirs is 4.5%. They have a hippocampal formation, which is responsible for learning, special navigation, and memory, and that's 5 times that of other birds relative to brain volume. Their brain's only about the size of a grain of rice, but they're amazing birds. They can remember migration routes, they can remember the last flower they visited, and they remember you when they see you. Now, they've been called the top guns of the animal world. That's actually wrong, and I'll show you why. They have really an adaptable rotator cuff. that allows them to do figure eights instead of just flapping up and down. And because they can do figure eights, they can hover, they can land vertically, they can rise vertically, and they can even fly backwards. Okay? There's no other plane that can do that, not the F-18s anyway, but the F-35 can. But it costs $2 trillion to develop this plane. $2 trillion. You see the figure eight, if you look above, you see a figure eight pattern off this feeder. This is the cautious hummingbird. Okay. Let's talk about feeding. That tongue wraps around their head, and so it's longer than their bill. And so they can reach fairly far into a flower. And they extend and retract that tongue 20 times per second. It's fast. Until recently, you thought that they sucked up water like a straw, but it's wrong. They have, the tongue is in two parts, you see there, and it comes out and it gathers up the water in those little net-like things. And then as the hummingbird retracts that and pushes it back out again, what he retracts is he swallows. So it's just back, it's like a little pump, goes back and forth. What do they eat in the wild? Well, they like flowers that are tubular, red, yellow, or orange. So we have things like ocotillo, tuberosa, desert willow, Indian paintbrush. Indian paintbrush is a parasitic plant. It steals nutrients from other plants. The century plant. They love the century plant. Like humans love the blue agave for its distillates in bars. Okay, so in your garden, what kind of things do you plant to attract them? Well, you have lantana. Everyone knows lantana. Cape honeysuckle, yellow bells. The Cape honeysuckle and yellow bells are in the same family, the same genus, actually. They're related, along with the desert willow. Okay, the firecracker plant, again, red flowers, tubular. Don't worry about bees working their way into red flowers. Bees cannot see red. They see red as black, and so they avoid red flowers. Autumn sage, coral honeysuckle, related to the honeysuckle on the other side of the country, the Avoidance japonica. Penstemons. There are 250 species of penstemon in the United States and Canada. These are some of the ones that we grow, that I grow in my garden. And they're drought tolerant, they're wind resistant, they're fantastic. Etonii is in flower almost all year long. What else? Aloes. They love aloes. You've heard of aloe vera, the burnt ointment. Okay, this is a coral aloe. These are native to the Eastern Hemisphere. Most have this rosette of thick, fleshy leaves with marginal teeth, and there are about 580 species. Where can you buy them? Well, there's a great little mnemonic, Lowe's for aloes. Buy them at Lowe's. They're tubular, yellow, orange, or pink, and pendant. Okay. There's aloe vera. My favorite, though, is Aloe Blue Elf. You can buy this at Lowe's beginning in January. And it's in flower. It's been in flower for several months. Hummingbirds love this. It thrives in poor soils. It's hardy down to 25 degrees Fahrenheit. It tolerates extreme heat, UV, which we have here, drought, and is rabbit-proof. Yeah. Now, people may ask, how do you get those pictures together with this freezing its wings like that? Thing is, you can't take this with a cell phone. There's no way. You need a long lens, first of all, to make them, don't be afraid. And so once you do that, you need to set your camera settings to shutter priority. And then set it for like 1,000th of a second. Of course, that demands you have good light. It's good sunlight. They also like red yucca, bottle brush, begonias, lobelias, lavender, rosemary, and so forth. but you can't live on sugar alone. You need protein. 60% of their diet is spiders, little spiders. And when they come upon a little bee like this, they can unhinge their lower beak, and they ram the insect with that beak, like it was like Yogi Bear's catcher's mitt, and they just swallow it after that. Now here we have talk about feeders. What kind of feeders should you buy? I love this photo. There are 13 hummingbirds at this table with one very colorful figure. What does that remind you of? The Last Supper. Okay. Now there are two kinds of feeders. Basically. One is bottle style. This I would not recommend because you need a bottle brush to clean it. Okay. They can get kind of fancy, as you see on the right. Even fancier. If you're a Green Bay Packers fan, you're going to love this. The ones I showed earlier with the video, this is a thing called Birdfy, and it's got two cameras hooked up to it with a solar collector. Mine conked out after about a week or two, but this is what it looks like. And this, here we are. That's not me. Okay, trying to advance it here. There he is. Okay. The cameras are catching on this. This little male goes to all three ports, like they're different. The little female stays at the same one. There he is. Nope, go back. Well, continue with this one. This is a little verdin, not hummingbird. It seems to be stuck, Mike. Okay, there's the female. The little verdin is hummingbird wannabe. What's wrong with this picture? She tries everything she knows to get into that, but there's just no way with that short beak. You also see the rear toe, the rear claw, functions like an opposable thumb to hold on to things. There's also the dish style, which I prefer. Easier to clean, much easier to clean. The lid just lifts off, okay? But sometimes they can be fancy, like the one you see on the left. Now, what do you put in it? 1 part white sugar, not brown sugar, granulated white cane sugar, and 4 parts water. And I prefer boiling to make sure it's dissolved, perfectly. And don't use the commercial mix you can find at Lowe's or Home Depot because it contains red dye, number 40, which causes ADHD in children. Try to imagine a hummingbird on ADHD. You don't want to think about that. And the preservative potassium sorbate. So hummingbirds don't need that. Okay. Clean them every 6 to 7 days, every 3 to 4 days in the summer, because if they get foul, they can really injure the birds. And put them in the shade or wrap the reservoirs in aluminum foil. And what time of the day they visit? They visit primarily first thing in the morning, and then before they go to bed. They have to eat at least double their weight before they go to bed to last them through the night. Okay. Territoriality. Many of you have talked to me about this. Why are they fighting over the feeder? What causes it? Well, it's a monopolization of space. And what causes that? It's competition or control of natural resources. Okay, so let's look at it. Figure 2 people here fighting over toilet paper during COVID. It goes on and on and on. Okay. All right. Now, how do you stop it? There are a few ways. You can add feeders. Jesse Hendricks had a house in Nogales, Arizona. When he moved there, he saw some hummingbirds, and so he put out a feeder. Pretty soon there were 2 hummingbirds who put out another feeder. And after that, people came to see his place, and they all brought feeders. Now he had 110 feeders, and he would make up 13 gallons of sugar solution every day just to fill those feeders. And he'd have 12,000 hummingbirds per day visiting him. He died in 2013, unfortunately. Now his property's been sold, so there's no trespassing, but he did a great service. He was a retired school teacher. Must have been a very nice man. You can also put at least one out of sight of the bully. Now what we did, we have 2 feeders in the back, we put 1 in the front. Okay? So they can't be in 2 places at once. Or you can add plants for hemming baskets. We use petunias or geraniums or salvias. Now fountains. You don't need the fountains of Bellagio, okay, to satisfy the birds. If you've got a bubbler, that's fine. Bubblers are great, but that's kind of expensive too. I found this place, Gary Hart's in California, makes these. He makes a three flower version for $300, and a 5-flower version for $500. Members love these. Or if you can make your own DIY, solar powered. You need a pump, a solar collector, and a dish. That's really all you need. And there's a great DIY video on YouTube, the Robbie and Gary Our Gardening Easy program. And less than $30. You can set one up. Iridescence. No, it depends on how you look at a bird and how his mate looks at him. On the left there, he's looking away from me. And here on the right, he's looking toward me. You can see the iridescence in his feathers up there on his head. What causes that? Well, in those feathers, there are little melanin rodules, little black rodules. They can be either log-shaped, they can be pancake-shaped. They refract the light. And it depends on the angle you're viewing from what you see. You can see red or blue or anything. And they use this iridescence to attract mates. Now, this calliope hummingbird does the same thing. He'll erect his gorget and flash it in front of the female. Of course, if humans did that, they get arrested. But anyway, he flashes it in front of the female, and she kind of thinks, okay, I'll mate with you, So that's the way it works. Males will also form leks, like other birds, like antelopes, like a big stag party. They'll all get together and start singing songs to try to attract a female. And the tunes they produce come not from the larynx. Birds don't have a larynx, but they don't use that to make noises, like, say, alligators. In fact, their sound comes from way below the windpipe there, in this place called the syrinx. And as air comes down the windpipe, thin membranes in the syrinx vibrate to make the sounds we hear. And I think I have the sound here of an Annis hummingbird, if we can make it work. Little buzzes and wibbles and chirps. Okay. Then the female will pick one from all these men and say, okay, show me what you can do. And he will dive up 100 feet and then dive back down again, up and down to really impress her. If that doesn't impress her, he gives up. If it does, they mate. Okay. The shuttle, we saw a little shuttle. The cautious hummingbird will put himself in front of a female and do like this, and with the sun, and it's called the shuttle. He'll go back and forth, back and forth. And, okay, talk about nests. There's an unapproved casita in Sun City Anthem up there. They'll nest almost anywhere, in bells, and don't buy birdhouses. They're DIY birds, okay? And they like to use twigs, leaves, bark, feathers, moss, lichens, plant fibers, and spider silk. You can also help them by buying what's called Hummer Helper on Amazon. And they'll use that to build their nest. Other birds will use it too. The desert wrens. Now, Terra works for Bird Alliance of Oregon. It used to be called Portland Audubon. They changed the name because they found out that Audubon was a slave owner and a slave seller. So they changed the name. And she found this little nest of hummingbirds not too far from where she worked. And so she went by them every day for 3 weeks and took some pictures to show the development of the little birds. In 11 days, they're feeding every 20 minutes, dawn to dusk. In 2 weeks, they're poking out, not moving a muscle until the mama comes to feed them. And then in 2.5 weeks, their eyes are open and they're beginning to preen. And they fledge at about 3 weeks. They fly off. Okay, let's talk about sleep. Why don't they die during sleep? Because they can't be feeding. What they do is they drop their metabolism down so low they don't burn up any energy. Their temperature goes from 104 degrees than normal down to 64 degrees, 38 degrees in the Andes. And their heart rate drops from 1,000 beats per minute to 36. 36. Why, when they sleep upside down, don't they fall off? Because there are two tendons attached to the leg muscles, from leg muscles to the toes. And as soon as those toes hit a perch, it's an involuntary motion to clasp down. Okay, and then when do they wake up? About 2 hours before sunrise, they begin to kind of stir, and the heart beats faster, and then the wings begin to flutter, which warms them up, and they fly off about an hour later to start feeding. What are the predators? There's a person here in Sun City Anthem who saw a roadrunner eat 2 of the chicks in her nest. So watch out for roadrunners. Praying mantises, believe it or not, will eat these things. They'll hang by the feeders and then grab them as they pass by. Spider webs. We get caught in spider webs. Humans, collisions in cars, indivisible sliding glass doors, pesticides. But you can prevent collisions by putting decals or stickers on your sliding glass doors, as I've done here. Either magnets or stickies. If you find an injured bird, what do? I found one when I first moved here. Didn't know what to do, so I just left it. I don't know where I found it. If it's feathered, in any way, just leave it alone. And just keep the dogs and cats away. If it's only partially feathered, you can try to find the nest and put it back in. You're thinking, well, wouldn't that scare the mother off if she smells my scent on her? Birds have no sense of smell, except the turkey vulture. So it's not a problem. So if there's some type of a nest, just leave it on the ground. That's all you can do. For further reading, I recommend these 3 publications. The one that middle and the right are available from Amazon, and the left is available online. So, I'd like to acknowledge Terra Lemezis for those nesting photos and Lifelong Learning for recording this. Thank you very much.
Are there any questions?
Any questions?
The mic's coming.
There's the microphone coming.
I brought 2 of my feeders, and I don't know if they're working right. They drip, they leak, they come out from here. This is the second one I've gotten, and I bought it from Lowe's or Home Depot. And this is another one. And I make my own, as you said, 1 part to 4 parts, is it?
Right.
And I let it cool after I boil it and put it out there.
I would
Sometimes
advise,
they feed them, sometimes they don't.
I would advise, as I say, the dish feeders are much better than
I'm
bottle
sorry?
feeders. And there's never a problem with those. Never a problem. The dish feeders. I showed the dish feeders, remember?
A dish? Oh.
Use those instead. Easier to clean, cheaper. Yeah.
Where do you get those? Just
Well, Lowe's, online, Amazon. Yeah.
Other questions?
That probably answered my question, is that we put out 3 feeders, and the larger sparrow birds, or birds, they just rip them apart.
Bottle feeders or dish feeders?
They're the bottle feeders.
Okay, well, we have the dish feeders. We also have the Carolina, rather the desert wrens come to ours. I just shoo them off. They can't get the nectar because their beaks are too short. And so I just scare them off.
That's why they rip out the little yellow petal thing.
Really? Really?
Yeah. I mean, they're all on the ground. And
Okay, no. The dish feeder I talked about has no petals on it. It's just a hole. Okay, try that.
Question over here.
What tips can you give us about cleaning feeders? I've heard that dish soap isn't good for them.
I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
Cleaning the feeders.
Right.
What to use? I've heard dish soap is not good to use, and you should use vinegar and baking soda. But
I just use hot soapy water.
really,
Yeah. Never a problem. Yes.
Question here.
My question is, you mentioned about hummingbirds are territorial, and I witnessed it from East Coast and Nevada, and I have a feeder with multiple outlets. One bird always chase away others, so that means the picture you showed us earlier with 13 hummingbirds, that is the Photoshop one? Or I have never seen, or hardly ever seen, 2 birds to be on the same feeder.
It's rare. It's very, very rare. I didn't mention one thing. I saw 2 males fighting. One had the other male pinned to the ground with his foot. It was very vicious. I had to break it up. So the territoriality can get kind of dramatic at some point. So it's very common. It's very common, though. But as I say, the best way to treat that is to put a feeder on the other side of the house. Maybe it could be, yeah. No, that's not true, because I've seen videos of Jesse Hendricks's place when he was running it, and he had like 100 feeders, and there were several birds on the same feeder at the same time. Yeah.
Next question.
Okay.
Yes.
Since the birds are migrating during the winter, shouldn't we put our hummingbird feeders away during the winter to dissuade them from staying here?
I don't. And I've got the males will stay on, the females will fly off, will migrate, but the male will stay on throughout the winter. And as I say, if they get too cold, they can shut down their metabolism and survive that way. Their feathers offer almost no insulation, but they can shut down their metabolism. So, I mean, you can if you want to. I leave mine out just to make sure that somebody's feeding him. So, good question, though. Yeah, it's a good question. Should you take them away to prevent them getting cold damage? Mine never do. They stay throughout the year.
Any other questions? No? Okay, well, thank you so much, Alec. We had a great presentation.